evolves and navigates transition, loss, change, and uncertainty. Today, I would like to share with you about the golden triangle of entrepreneurship. And in this case, we will review the idea of a culture that can be designed, that can be built, that you can generate. And the key word today is also self-knowledge. I have been introducing you in previous video lessons to the golden triangle of entrepreneurship for creating a holistic blueprint for your business, for discovering your purpose, for learning with many disciplines together to explore your full potential and realize the different income streams that you can generate in your life to achieve a holistic wealth, how to create a circular lifestyle when you utilize this holistic system, and many more applications, including the ability to breathe consciously and activate unique skills and capacity in each of the 9 fields of your potential. Now, today I would like to share something else with you that is extremely important. We have been talking about self-knowledge and how self-knowledge is so close to your purpose quest, to the transformation of your life into a lifestyle that is purpose-driven, to the transformation of your business culture into a business culture that is purpose-driven. So, what is the next step in our journey? How do you measure your capacity? Can you create some fields, categories of interest in which you can describe yourself, your holistic self? For example, what in your life is related to your purpose? What in your life is related to your ability to generate wealth? What in your life is connected to your heart, to your own personal culture and identity? 3 main questions, and if you organize a set of skills, tools, lessons, knowledge, activities that are related to each of these 3 fields, you will actually get to know yourself better, and eventually you will be able to align these 3 fields to your purpose and create a purpose-driven lifestyle just by utilizing 3 fields of your life. 3 questions. In the Matrix Q ecosystem, we use 9 questions, 18 questions, 27, 729 fields that can be aligned to your purpose. But we are not talking only about your individual life, your authentic self, your own individual personal transformation. We're also talking about the capacity you have to co-create with others and each of them in their own singular journey, and together through a collective effort achieve even more profound results. So, what is the next level? Can we create a culture together, and which kind of culture can we create? And many of you would have already realized that the golden triangle of entrepreneurship generates a code for each individual, and this code describes the current status of your condition, the skills you have, the patterns, the traits, the potential you would like to develop. When you generate the data for this code, certainly you can monitor your changes, monitor your transitions, your loss, how do you evolve, what you have learned, what else you need to learn to face that challenge that you can predict in the future. But what happens when we utilize the same code to study a team, a community, a family? Can we identify a common pattern, a common trace? And yes, we can do that. And for example, when you define what is the DNA of your culture, then we can describe the DNA with a code. Then we can also evaluate what is the DNA of a team, and we can compare the DNA of the culture with the DNA of the team and find out that eventually they do match or do not match, that the business culture matches the culture of the individuals and their teams as a collective, and that one of the business plan. And in reality is that in our modern times there is a great inconsistency between what we write in the paper, what we feel, what we do, and what we think and say we do. And therefore, to generate data about all of these layers of our reality and find out if they are really consistent, synchronized, aligned, coordinated, if they are much, is a very honorable effort. Then we can really say that we're doing what we're saying we're doing. Now, I would like you to consider for a moment that the same type of assessment can be done for a culture. And we have done that. I have done that in the past. While visiting archaeological sites since I was very young, a child, I will join these private expeditions with family, friends, and my parents, and it will be always a multidisciplinary conversation from mathematics to technology to social science to biology and all sorts of ideas, trying to understand the meaning of the art, the architecture, the dances, the stories, the myths, and how did it all make sense in the time of these ancient cultures. And South America is full of those traces and of all of those stories. And not only South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, everywhere, in every side, there are many layers of civilizations building up on top of each other. And one of the most interesting lessons I learned at the time is that today researchers at the time, researchers did find out that music, patterns of geometry in textiles, in arts, will become a language to communicate the memories of the culture to the next generation. So that means that eventually today there are still traces of very, very ancient story hidden in the textiles, in the arts, in the music, in the dances, in the myths. Why is this important? Because when a culture disappears, does not disappear fully. There are traces, legacy of that culture that still are alive in our time. And this is tremendously important for us today. There is another research study came to my hands a long time ago, a publication that probably today is very well known, in which was possible to identify some specific traits of cultures in different locations around the planet. And obviously, we have many years of social science studies trying to identify the traits of a particular culture. A culture is not necessarily a nation with the name of a country and flag and a geographical political limit. A culture may be nomadic, may be living in more than one geographical, geopolitical location or time region, and may come and go. But we could identify those traits, and I remember those years also through my own nomadic life, identifying the traits of the nomadic culture I was becoming part of, a culture of travelers that will dedicate themselves to create a positive impulse in society and find different ways to sustain their life and projects while still living abroad traveling, sharing a common language, common meanings, common cultural habits and traits, and a common mindset. And despite all our nationalities, we share that common culture. This is very important because the traveler's culture did evolve in time, and this is a fantastic experience because you realize that a global citizen appears in our planet with a new mindset that is inclusive, integrative, collaborative to any location that we arrive. Now, uh, there is a lot more in the understanding of these different cultures. As I said, there are specific traits. Now, when I use the golden triangle of entrepreneurship, this GTE tool, to describe those traits, I generate some codes, and these codes that are so specific to a culture are matching also the different cycles and rhythms of nature that can be concentrated in that specific geolocation. There is a geometrical correlation between hormonal cycles, the seasons of the year, cosmic events, with specific points in the planet in which such qualities should be combined together, and there is actually a match between those natural cycles, rhythms, principles with the traits of the local culture, which is a fantastic thing to find out. This experience created for me so much wonder, and I got so fascinated through it to explore ancient cultures and civilizations, to identify also the code for these ancient traditions, communities, spiritual circles, and through that code understand with more precision how the traits of that code will describe to the knowledge, the technology, the way of thinking, the mindset, the way of learning. So finally we got a tool to read with a standard mathematical common language that is synchronized with nature, ancient cultures and civilizations as modern ones, to understand the technology, the knowledge, and a common language that can help us bring all these traditions and civilizations in time, in the past, and also in the future together. But while reading these codes, I also found a very disturbing question. And it is that every time when you review human history, you see civilizations coming and going, not necessarily for catastrophic events that happen every 12,000 years or 13,000 years, or for cosmic events, but civilizations that comes and go because of the clash between civilizations and cultures, or because of the natural decay of a culture. So when I study those transitions in time with this code system, the golden triangle of entrepreneurship, I realized that it was certainly expected. And I will give you an example how all these work. the golden triangle of entrepreneurship, and looking at the three most essential principles connected to the earth element, the fire element, and the water element. And I was sharing at the time a story, and I was asking you to imagine yourself in the rainforest and trying to survive. So the first thing you will look for are shelter, water, food, safety, health and medicines. And if you are able to build a family or a community, to set a territory that is safe for everybody and give those basic needs to its members. In ancient times, people would choose to move from one location to the other until they found agriculture. And I've shared a lot more about the history of economy from this perspective in many of my videos before. But the story today is about the three codes. The code of the Earth 3, the code of Fire 8, and the code of Emotional Intelligence 7. So when there is a civilization that has managed to nurture itself with food, shelter, water, medicine, health, some level of happiness and quality of life, in the rainforest, and we're not talking about yet technology, just the ability to find and recognize what is the healthy food, where is the water, how to get medicines. What creates a difference for the culture is if they learn to also create tools. In the case of a natural disaster or the case of an invasion, if they have not tools and the other tribe or civilization have the ability to create tools, that means to use the fire element to create tools and use tools, then certainly the civilization that do not have the tools is in disadvantage and cannot include the civilization that knows all the skills, tools, and knowledge related to the ability to transform the life with a fire element, plus also has the ability to find food, shelter, water, and so on. So the culture that is more complex and more advanced will absorb a culture that isn't that advanced, that is less complex. Now, if you have another tribe, another culture that has the ability to utilize and create tools to find shelter, water, and food, and medicine, and also the ability to use their emotions and understand their emotions, be empathic and connect with each other in another way, and use that emotional intelligence to survive, to evolve, to grow. That third culture will be more advanced and able to include the other two. Now, certainly this story is oversimplified, but I just want to give you an example that you understand that if a culture has a more complex code of generation, in this case a 387 code, will be capable to integrate a culture that have a binary code like 3-8. And cultures that are binary may be able to include a monary code like the culture with the code 3. In this case, 3 represents earth element, everything that is pragmatic, tangible, money, wealth, property, food, shelter, everything that's important for survival. The code 8 is all about learning, transformation, innovation, and the code 7 is all about information, data, emotions, empathy, perception, communication, collaboration. So if a culture has these 3 codes, obviously will be more skillful and strategic and able to include and conquer the other cultures. There are examples like this in history, and I will share with you some of them for you to understand. 18 to 19, I was writing some books to describe the outcome of my research, and one of those books was dedicated to the culture generation engine. And if it is an engine that helps people follow certain guidance and operating principles, decision-making principles that will, from a small group of people, build completely a new type of culture that could become a legacy for the following 27 generations, for example. Then I realized that if one single person can identify a set of principles, of codes, of elements that combine solve a specific problem or challenge in the present time, this person could craft a complete new culture out of the combination of those principles. So I had a language to describe the principles, and I had a language to study history, and I was embarking myself into a journey to review one more time events of history, civilizations and cultures to find out if my theory was true. So I did. And one of the civilizations or cultures I did explore was, for example, Rome. Rome is a very good example of a civilization that expands in the world and has the ability to integrate and utilize the knowledge, technology, and traits of all other cultures that is absorbing. Yet we know that Rome as an empire reached its limit, the capacity of the culture to include and integrate. And the outcome was that the culture of Rome will decay and disappear. Yet it did not disappear, it transformed itself into a more everlasting culture, shifting from an empire that works on territory, on wealth, on resources, on technology, on cultural expressions that live all together, on the tools and the ideas that all of these other nations will bring together, to shift into a more advanced form of culture in which belief, in which knowledge, in which power of influence will become the expression of a culture that will be everlasting. The Roman Empire transformed itself into a religion, the Christian religion, that will later on expand itself even wider in the whole planet, creating colonies all over. So this shift, this transition from a military force into a religious military force was allowing the Roman Empire to expand, to continue its life. So cultures as Rome as we knew it will have to disappear, and a new code will need to come into place to complexify the way the legacy of this culture, the same operating principles will evolve in time and explore a new expression, a new form. The same happened in the past with many other civilizations. How do they integrate each other, merge, and create something new out of this integration? So today in the European Union, we have so many cultures coming together. Europe has been always filled with many cultures, with geographical borders, with differences because of the languages and the cultural expressions. Yet in a certain moment in time, because of our ability to travel, we are exchanging experiences and becoming a region with diversity. Plus, the increasing welcome of a number of foreigners from other countries and locations, other continents like Asia, Africa, Americas, North, South, and Central America, the Nordic countries, North Asia, Eurasia, you name it, all of these people coming together into these big hubs of cultures. Certainly, in a certain moment, the capacity of the DNA code of the European Union to integrate, hold, and manage, and evolve together with the diversity that's being included will reach to a limit point and will need to decay and evolve, transform itself. So the question today for me is, which is the code? how is the level of complexity, and based on which principles that this new culture generation engine for Europe will create a future for the following 9 generations or 27 generations. If this code is based on the older way of thinking, mindset, tools that created the decay, the complexity, the limitations of the current culture, creating the limitations that explain why the culture or the civilization is not evolving, is not developing anymore, and the system is not working anymore. If we use the same way of thinking and tools, certainly we will not arrive to a more evolved culture or civilization. The same ensuring about Europe applies for the Nordic countries, applies for Russia, China, for India, for Eurasia, for North America continent, for Central South America continent, for Africa, for Australia, applies for every culture and civilization. And before the World War, in the last century, there was a person who initiated the idea of United Nations. And this story is tremendously important for us today. Our ability to learn from the past is so important for us to create a future that is smarter, more intelligent. So if we repeat the same steps once and again, we cannot expect a different outcome. Therefore, learning collectively from the past, from what other generations did, carrying a book of history that explains why and how we made those decisions. In the same way that you can do it through your own personal journal, historians, archaeologists, anthropologists, sociologists help us understand what kind of decisions and choices were made in the past that created the outcomes that we experience still today. We need to learn from the past, but it's challenging to learn from the past with the mindset of perception values of the present because we have bias. And therefore, I was really fascinated about this system I discovered because it utilizes nature principles, geometry, mathematics. Therefore, the bias is very minimum. Well, many years ago, last century, there was a man that was born in Russia, and I will leave you some information for that in the workbook that I would like to share with you. And this man was dedicated to study ancient cultures, as many other people as myself found treasures in ancient cultures that today in our modern civilization we could not find anymore. And the understanding of those treasures, of those valuable informations and examples of technology, of life, of thinking, of knowledge, that was imprinted not only in the architecture but also in the textiles, in the music, in the stories, in everything, every trace of those cultures. That was a realization for me and other explorers and independent researchers. It was really a treasure to be able to visit those locations and have contact with those places. But the last century, the beginning of last century, this Russian researcher was finding out that in the case of war, always those cultural treasures get damaged and disappear, get robbed and stolen, get moved and displaced. Therefore, the information, the knowledge as we would like to access it, as pure as should be, cannot be accessed anymore. So he came to the idea to write letters to governments of all around the world to initiate an agreement so that they, in the case of war, will agree to respect heritage and culture. And therefore, to be sure that it's a legacy that we can give to the next generations and don't destroy our past. His efforts came into fruit before the First World War started and when the Second World War started, but I think his motivation gave birth to what later on will become the United Nations. Yet, independently of all the laws that we have today and agreements, war and conflict are always threatening the archive, the library of knowledge that our planet holds in the archaeological, cultural memories and in the memories of people that eventually through shock and trauma because war experiences won't be able to share, express or live anymore. So it is really challenging to see that the great diversity of locations of all around the world with unique set of expressions from which we can learn so much about what human can become and the full potential of humanity experienced in this planet like a laboratory of self-expression and evolution can be lost because conflicts between cultures, civilizations, tribes in history. This is for me a very dramatic side of the history of humanity, of the history of leadership, of wealth, of evolution and progress. Yet the history gives us a lesson and that lesson can be read, and in this case I'm reading those lessons through using this golden triangle of entrepreneurship, this encoded tool that helped me read through using nature principles and cycles in the regions of time and the history of civilizations and leaders and knowledge. And this lecture that I practice every time that I have the ability and the time to do, every time I have access to information, every time that I'm able to practice and exercise the same knowledge of these ancient cultures and time, every time I access more of this information, I feel so amazed for the profound knowledge of ancient cultures and civilizations. And I see how we are building a new civilization, which are the principles, the codes that we're using, and if we are following the same pattern of the past, or if we are evolving into something that will be more rewarding, new, and give more opportunities for humanity to evolve, to develop a civilization that is more advanced as a human species in the planet. So I'm sharing this information with you because I would like you to join me in the journey of understanding ancient cultures and civilizations, our current times, and predicting what future civilizations and cultures or microcultures can create for contributions for humanity in the future. So we're going to explore the past, the present, and the future together. And I promise you it will be a very fascinating journey. If you are fascinated about history, about archaeology, about sociology, about anthropology, if you are looking at the future with wonder, if you would like to explore what is happening in our times and predict events, if you would like to learn from the past to create something today with the current knowledge that will create a complete new future, you are welcome to join me into this journey and learn how to utilize these tools to transform your life. But that is not all. If you have a community of people and you would like to enhance the way your community work together with each other, in the way you collaborate with each other, become more resilient or self-sufficient, certainly you are in the need to understand the natural principles operating in your community and identify what is the culture you're creating with those principles, and if that culture is strong enough to survive the times in the future. The same applies for your company. You have a company culture. Is the DNA code, the culture generation engine, the combination of these principles, the algorithm that define your culture is strong enough to survive these times and the future, to grow, to evolve? Or is life is limited for a number of years only? Are you looking at the development of your culture and the development of the planet, how the DNA code of the planet, the historical events are challenging the DNA culture, the DNA code of your own company, and if your company can upgrade itself and develop? The same applies for your life as an individual. Is the DNA code that you are nurturing strong enough to survive the times that are coming, or can you evolve? Is the DNA code of the people that you are integrating in your company, in your community, the one that you need to evolve with the design principles of a culture that is stronger and flexible and able to be successful, evolving and navigating uncertainty, transitions, change and loss? Or you are recruiting people that actually carry a cultural code that is inefficient, that has bias and limitations for changing and adaptation, that will bring your company and your culture down? How can you find out? Can you educate people in your school, in university, in your high school, primary school, with core principles that are so flexible and adaptable that whatever situation that comes in the future, the individuals will be able to bring the best of the qualities to navigate time? All of these questions can be answered, and today, thanks to this new language, the Matrix Q language of nature principles, these codes, we can study and profile and predict and generate a culture that is stronger, nutritive, sustainable, resilient, and that creates holistic wealth for a new advanced civilization. If that is your choice, if that is our choice, it's something that can be done. And I invite you to navigate this journey with me together, to explore the benefits of these trainings and tools for your own personal life, for your company, and align those outcomes to your purpose to create a wonderful future for yourself, your family, your community, your nation, your planet, your human species. So you're very welcome. The only thing you need to do is to send me a private message and say, challenge accepted. I will be glad to provide to you one coaching session for free and a workbook for you to initiate the journey. I have a conversation with you on your expectations and what we would like to learn, so that we can decide together if we want and would like to collaborate with each other.